Good morning, lovelies. Few things are more frustrating than wanting to write, having that itch, but not having any story ideas. Some writers can just pluck ideas from the nether as easy as picking apples, but for the rest of us, we're just staring at that white page, just willing the words to appear. At least until we quit out of frustration. Luckily, I know a few tricks to getting those story ideas flowing, so today I'm going to share with you 10 ways to come up with your own story ideas that you're actually going to want to write. And number 1, other stories. A lot of original story ideas are just remixes of older story ideas, but with a new perspective. Game of Thrones was originally inspired by older grimdark works, some Lord of the Rings, and a healthy dose of real-world medieval history. A lot of my original story ideas start out as fanfic ideas. In the case of Citadel, my sci-fi novel that comes out next year, a good chunk of that was inspired by the ElfQuest graphic novel series, particularly the relationship that the elves had with wolves and their relationship with nature. Then a few years later, I got my first proper exposure to Star Trek when those alternate original universe movies came out, and I wrote a fanfic about the Enterprise crew coming into contact with my own original planet, which I'm sure many of you have also already done. I ended up smashing those two ideas together, the ElfQuest one and the Star Trek one, which is how Citadel went from a post-apocalypse story to on an alien planet. Sprinkle in a few themes from Avatar: The Last Airbender and the ruthless murder of characters from George R.R. Martin, and I had myself a story. I was able to grow my own characters, plot, and world building from seeds planted by other stories. And yeah, the first few drafts were a Frankenstein mess, but that's what revisions are for. So here's what I recommend you do. Make 3 lists. The first is your favorite 5 or even favorite 10 books. Second is your favorite 5 or 10 movies, favorite 5 or 10 shows. Choose one story from each, and then choose an aspect of that story, a character archetype, a bit of world building, type of plot. Pull from each of them, and then see what you can make from that. That's your writing prompt. Number 2, historical or mythological what-ifs. We have thousands of years of truly fascinating, mind-boggling history, legends, and mythologies that we can draw from. We just need to give it a new twist. So what if zombies showed up during the Battle of Gettysburg? What if the Greek gods were still alive and cranking out kids? What if a smart-ass time traveler showed up in the court of King Henry VIII? My mom wrote that one, but I'm the one who came up with the story idea after watching way too much drunk history. Obviously, this requires a bit of research, but luckily with Google and YouTube and endless streams of podcasts, documentaries, and blog posts, there is no shortage of that. Choose a time period in history or a type of mythology that you are particularly passionate about or that you just want to know more about and start reading. Worst case scenario, you get no story ideas, but you learn something new. Number 3, tropes. Tropes are just patterns that appear in storytelling. There is no way to avoid them, but bonus, they are a really great way to grow your audience. Certain people like certain tropes and they're gonna gravitate towards your work if they know you have their favorite tropes. But that's a video for when I finally learn how to actually market my book. Beyond that though, tropes can actually help you come up with story ideas. Most writers gravitate towards certain tropes in their stories. I mean, we write what we want to read. So it makes sense for my work, for instance, to have badass women characters, happy endings, found family, etc. We also have least favorite tropes that we want to see avoided or, in this case, subverted. See if you can find ways to do a fresh take or a total subversion on a popular trope. So for example, the arranged marriage romance story has the typical power dynamic of the young, usually naive, relatively powerless woman shipped off to marry the mature, sexy, powerful prince or lord. There's some historical accuracy in there, I get it. But what if the genders were swapped? Or if one or both of them was queer? What if the woman arranged this marriage herself for power or ambition? What if she is using this arranged marriage as a smokescreen to get into this foreign kingdom so that way she can investigate some sort of crime or learn some sort of magic that is forbidden in her homeland, or she's even like a scout or an assassin that she's gonna betray that kingdom later. So here are your instructions. Make a list of your top 5 favorite tropes, the ones where if you know that they are in a particular story, you're there. Then make a list of your top 5 least favorite tropes that you would like to see subverted in some way. Mix and match and see what you get. Number 4, change the POV. We have all read 100 Chosen One stories, but what if the story was told from the point of view of the Chosen One's parents? What if instead of focusing on the royalty and nobility in a medieval fantasy story, you focus instead on the cook who is asked to poison them? Instead of using a soldier as the narrator for your war story, choose the bomb-sniffing dog. Just don't kill it off. If you have a general idea or aesthetic or genre for your novel, but you're stuck there, then make a list of all of the most popular character archetypes that appear in those stories. Instead of choosing the one that's been done to death, choose a different one. Tell us their story. Number 5, Pinterest and Tumblr. This one's obvious, right? I mean, there's always some writing prompts going on here. And going back to our trope subversion suggestion, there's always a person on these sites who are just like, gosh, I really wish that they would write a trope like this that's done this way, or that the story with werewolves was written that way instead. So that's an easy one, but let's say you don't want the easy way out here. If you want to avoid the actual writing prompts, then search for specific images of whatever aesthetic you're going for. Find a specific image of a witch or a dragon or a robot. An image is worth 1,000 words, so grab a journal and write. What's this creature's story? How did they get there? Where are they going? What problems are they facing? If you want to get really creative, boot up 2 or even 3 images from different aesthetics or genres, and then mix and match. The robot from image A winds up in the dragon's lair from image B and sees the glowing magical stones from the witch in image C. What happens? Number 6, role-playing games. If you play RPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, you're familiar with the process of creating characters or even whole worlds. What if one of your D&D characters was in a completely different setting, like the American Revolution or ancient Greece or a sci-fi dystopia? I'm not saying to do a time travel or a multiverse story, although you can absolutely do that if you want to. I'm saying take a character or a group of characters that you're already familiar with and create a brand new setting around them, and then adjust the characters to fit that setting. I mean, basically, I'm saying write an AU. If you have a centuries-old elven wizard, how do they deal with a world that is moving away from magic and into technology? How does your berserker barbarian survive in a world with machine guns and grenades? What does a cleric or a paladin of a peace deity do during World War I? Pulling story ideas from old RPG campaigns are great because you already have a main character or even an entire cast of characters. That's half the work right there. Now you just need a setting and a decent plot and you're good to go. Number 7, music. This might just be a me thing, but whenever I listen to a particularly good song, my brain automatically ends up thinking of some fantasy or sci-fi scene. Especially if it's a song that can be paired with an action scene, which is about 90% of my music library. Now there are several ways to use music to generate story ideas, using the titles of certain songs as writing prompts where each song correlates to a different character, setting, or scene, creating a playlist of the type of aesthetic that you're going for, and then meditating or free writing to it. Personally, I just boot up my favorite tunes or radio, grab my earbuds, and then go on a walk. Physical exercise can really get those juices flowing, and by the time I'm back, I've usually figured out the scene or the character or the plot hole that was giving me trouble. Number 8, your old stories and writing journals. Most of us writers have entire bookshelves of used journals full of really bad, cringy stories that we wrote as kids and then kept for sentimental value.
Literally this entire bookshelf, it's wall-to-wall journals shoved full of story ideas that I haven't looked at in years.
Chances are there is at least one snippet or even an entire rough draft that just needs the dust brushed off. See if you can dig up those old journals and go through them. I like to do this every couple of years or so, even if I'm not in any dire need of a story idea at the moment. It's just fun seeing what type of writer you used to be, and every now and then you rediscover a really cool story idea that you completely forgot about, but you now have the skill to actually pull off. Number 9, talk to other writers. I am not advocating stealing their ideas or begging them to let you use some of their ideas, alright? What I am saying is that other writers can help you brainstorm. I live in an apartment with 2 other roommates. All of us are writers. I cannot tell you how many times we have had to bounce ideas off of each other when we got particularly stuck. Now I know what you're thinking, but Chris, they could steal my idea. I have literally never heard of that happening. Writers and writing communities tend to respect the idea's origins, and they won't take it unless you give explicit permission. Also, the sheer amount of effort that they would need to turn your rough idea into a polished manuscript just isn't worth it when they have their own story ideas that they're actually passionate about. And it's pretty easy to prove a copyright claim in court. It's just a good idea to have a writing community anyway. I know that goes against every introverted bone in your body, but it has got to be done. They can be online friends. You don't have to talk to them in real life. It's fine. And number 10, YouTube writing videos. Is this a shameless plug for my own channel? Well, it's not that. In all seriousness, this is what I do whenever I get stuck. Usually I will already have the general story idea that I want to do, but I'm caught on the specifics. I don't know what type of characters or setting or plot that I'm going to pair with it. So I've got this whole list of YouTube creators that I turn to whenever that happens, and a solid 2/3 of the time, they can get me out of it. Overly Sarcastic Productions Trope Talk playlist, Hello Future Me's writing playlist, Jenna Moressi's whole channel, Just Right. I'll link them all in the description of this video, plus any others that I come across or come up with between now and when I post this video. Be sure to check out my writing advice playlist and my world building playlist for more ideas. I will see you next time. Bye, lovelies.